and cichlids. I decided to come back for a walkthrough of the tanks in the fish room, and I'll explain a little bit about each tank. You know, a little bit about the species, a little bit of how I acquired them. But hopefully you learn a little bit. Hopefully you get inspired like me. But I'm going to take you by tank, and show you the fish. And I've done some additional work here in the tank, moved some fish around. I've had a couple broods released in the last week, and we'll see how this goes. This video will have a little bit more editing to it. I got some editing software, and you know, like I said in the first video, I want to make this entertaining for you as the viewer, and we'll see where this takes us. But I hope you enjoy the walkthrough, and we'll be back. Thank you. Alright, first here what we have is the Otopharynx heterodons. These are kind of a rarer fish, at least in my area. I've never seen these prior to picking up this breeding group in a local fish store in my area. So at least in the Ohio region, I haven't seen these. And I got a call from my local fish store that I deal with a lot, and he said, "You'll never believe what I got on my list this week to order." And he basically just asked me if I was interested, and told me about these. I said, let me look them up a little bit, let me see what's going on, and I'll get back to you. And it took me about 5 minutes to realize that there was not a whole lot of information out there on these fish. So I called him back and I said, yeah, let's do count me in for a male and 5 female, or male and 4 females for a total of 5 fish. And he said they're probably going to be pretty small when they get in. That's just my take. So I said, hey, just, you know, order what you feel comfortable with, and give me a call when they're in. So about 2 days later, he called me and said, hey, they're in. I traveled up there, and we picked out what we believed, and what I believed mostly was a male and 4 females. He kind of left it up to me to hand pick them. So I got them home. I put them in this exact tank, and they were probably about half the size of these, half the size of where they are now. And I had a situation. I had them for about 2.5, 3 weeks, and they were growing pretty steadily. They were adding a good bit of girth to them, and they all looked exactly the same. So I was with no color traits popping at all. So I started feeding them some frozen brine shrimp, and in the cubes, some whole frozen, and after I fed them once a day on those frozen brine shrimp, and they got a cube for the whole tank, and all of a sudden for my first time in fish keeping, I had an outbreak of bloat. And I did the whole Epsom salt, turn up the temperature a couple degrees. I think I moved it up maybe 2 degrees tops. And a couple of them pulled through for about a week, and then I ended up losing them. So because of the lack of information on this specific species, you know, there's a lot of trial and error. So I have yet to figure out if there's not a whole lot of info because they're that rare, or because people that have them lose them, or can't, you know, don't write the info. So what my plan is to really document this tank and figure out what's going on, you know, and let other people know what's going on. So there'll be probably an article on a couple forums here soon, if they so choose to publish it. But basically, I lost of the 5, I lost 3, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna wing it. I'm just gonna see if I end up with a pair. But because these come up so rarely on a fish list, I decided to head back to the local fish store, explained to him what happened after 3 weeks of getting them. And he said, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's too much. There was too much protein at a young age because they are pretty much just juveniles. And he let me handpick three to replace them. So I believe what I ended up with the second time is exactly what I wanted to, and that was one male and 2 additional females. So basically overnight, the one male that you see kind of hanging out by his den, as I call it, heading into the decoration there, or right at the entrance, there he goes. It was basically overnight, well, not basically, literally overnight. He looked like the rest of them, how they look at the moment. I turn the fish lights on in the morning, and I give them about 10 minutes to wake up or so, and then I feed them and leave the lights on all day. Oh, we got some spawning. Isn't that awesome? I was just going to let you guys know that he hasn't made any movements or anything towards any of the females, but I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this rock here and see what the rest, see what else happens here. But he was doing a little bit of a, yeah, we'll give him some time. Maybe a false alarm. But overnight he lit up. I turned the lights on and I was blown back. I was just like, whoa, this fish is amazing, and he looks like he does now. So I don't know if it was the flakes. I don't know if it was, I fed him baby brine shrimp the night before and then he popped. So there could be anything. I did chance it and I gave him a little bit of protein, but they were the baby brine shrimp, and I figured they could pick it out of the substrate because, as you can see, they are picking a lot at the pool filter sand there. So overall, I think that these are going to be a great fish, and I'll get some close-ups of the male here to show you. But he's really taken a liking to that, to right underneath that decor there, and I think that'll be his new den. But I'll get a close-up here in a moment here, just so you can see the colors that he has popping. Now that he's doing some shaking and some spinning, he might be colored up as much as he will be. But and a little bit of egg spots on the fin there. The dorsal fin really popped in the last couple days, and from the little bit of info that's on them, those 3 spots down the back, they will lose that as a male, and that spot that's right above that gill cover there will kind of diminish, but it'll always kind of be there. But I'm waiting for him to really start coloring up here. But I'm going to cut here and grab a close-up of him, and again, this is for documentation purposes and let you know what I've got going on. So hang on one second. This is a 40-gallon breeder that houses currently the breeding group of Angara flametails. These are F2s, again from the local fish store / breeder. About 65% of his stock comes directly from wild-caught males at least, mostly both. He really strives for that male and female from the lake itself. Now, normally he doesn't, it takes him a while, but he will eventually part ways with his wild caught and his F1s, but normally speaking, he sells F2s. And the reason I decided to go with this instead of waiting around for the F1s is because the F1s actually out-colored up the male from the wild caught, which you normally don't see very often in my opinion. It does happen, but overall this male here being an F2, some fantastic coloring, and very, very similar to the male from the F1. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with the wild caught generation, you start off with wild caught, which is obviously caught from the lake itself, imported here. When that male and female pair spawns or reproduces, that brood or that fry is considered F1, so one generation away from wild caught. Then you take the male and the female from the F1s, they create F2s, which this is what we're looking at now, and so on and so forth. F3, F4. Really, after F3, they're just kind of named tank raised, and that's most of what you see in most of the local fish stores, in my opinion, as well. Now, you might see a little guy, maybe about an inch long in there. He usually hangs out in the skull, right behind the rock there. And he just snuck out after I was netting a female to move her into a tank. There was 2 or 3 that got out outside the net. I just left them in there. It looks like they hid underneath the rock there for a while, and then eventually I started seeing them popping out of the skull. So instead of chasing them all around trying to pick them up or trying to get like a turkey baster and try to get them, I just left them in there to see what happened. Experiments are experiments. So the way that I usually get the fry from the females is I don't like to strip the females. I'm not looking for bulk. I'm not looking to get her back in the tank as soon as possible to breed again. Basically what I do is I net the female, and against the wall of the tank I'll push the net up there. And then I'll grab a specimen container, dip that in the water, and then transfer her into the container. And then I put her in her own tank to release on her own accord. And usually that's a 10 or 15 or 20, just depends on the size of the female and the brood that I think she's carrying. But this works for me. I have a couple breeder boxes that I might put them in, but most of the time they have a little bit of decoration in there. Usually it's a bare bottom tank, just in case she does spit early and we still have yolk sacs and stuff like that. But generally speaking, after 14 to 16 days or so, I'll move her. I don't like to do it too soon. I like in this case where one snuck out. I want to basically test for the lack of a better term, the motherhood capabilities of the female. If I put her in her own tank and she spits right away, this could be because she's young still, which they are. As you can see, there's not too much size to these females in there. But generally speaking, I find out which female is going to be my best breeder. And out of a group of 3 or 4 females, in this case 5, if the fry tend to hide in the corner and they don't really hang around mom too much, then I kind of chalk her up to being, not the best breeder. So when I put them in the tank, there's one that is released here about 3 weeks ago. I actually thought she ate them. The mouth was not looking like she was holding them anymore, and I quickly found out that they were in there. They were underneath a rock, a hollowed out decoration, a fake rock, and she was just moving around the tank. She was eating, but I moved her back into this tank here, and about 2 days later I found the fry. So I'm kind of chalking her up to, hey, let's give it a couple more shots and see if she gets better at it. But they obviously didn't feel safe. They didn't feel secure. They didn't feel like they were welcomed back in. This could have just been because she was hungry. They don't eat for a month. I'd be hungry too. So overall, I'm really, really happy with the male here. I think he's going to put out some great stock. and I'm excited to see what this will bring. So I'll get some close-up shots here of the male, and I'll keep you guys updated on this tank. But he's basically, as you can see, that rock is his main focus for spawning, and maybe I'll just keep the video rolling a little bit more and step away from the tank and see if we can film a spawn here. Alright, here we have a 20 long with the breeding group of Dayglow cichlids from Lake Victoria. I really like these guys. I picked them up when they were only about maybe 3/4 of an inch long. They grow pretty fast. I've been pretty impressed with their growth. Right now we are looking at the dominant male of the group. Forever I thought I had 4 females and 1 male, and then an egg spot started showing up and a little bit of color on the dorsal fin of the subdominant, and that's about all he colors up with. As you can see, that I just turned the lights on just to film the video, so he's starting to color up a little bit, but you can see those bars coming in and the egg spot showing and a little bit of blue on that dorsal fin. But he's a great looking fish when he's colored up. These guys breed like convicts do. It seems like about every 3 weeks I have a holding female. So it doesn't take them very long for that process to start again. And here I have just sponge filter, basic light, and bare bottom tank. However, I am rethinking the setup here. I think I am going to add some more sand at the bottom. I had them upstairs in my office in a little 20 gallon as they were growing up and or growing out. However, they felt more at home instead of a bare bottom tank, so I use pool filter sand. I think it's a great substrate. Don't notice any kind of tearing or any irritation from them sifting through the sand, but they just feel a little bit more introverted down here in this bare bottom tank, and I think they just need that sand substrate to feel at home, or at least give them what they're used to. So normally they just kind of chill at the bottom. They're not a very active fish in either tank that I've had them in. I've had them in a 55, I've had them in a 30, I've had them in a 20, and I had them in this 20 long here. But generally speaking, pretty quiet, pretty docile fish, and like I said, they breed like crazy. I have collectively, probably in the last 4, 5, 6 months, about 6 months I'd say, they probably put out about 130, 150 fry. And for as young as they are, for as small as the females are, they produce great broods. So the male usually hangs out either behind that rock or between that rock and the sponge filter there, and every once in a while I'll play with their heat. I usually keep them at about a 78 degrees, and generally when I need them to spawn, I kick it up to about 81. Usually about 3-4 weeks after that, or usually 3 or 4 days after that, I've got at least one female holding. if not 2, and then I'll bring it back down and do a water change and things like that. But you can really see his color starting to pop out now. So great fish. Like I've said in past videos, I'm a huge fan of these Lake Victorian cichlids. Some of them, they just have unbelievable color. But what I like is that very neat, just kind of sunset blend of colors. You know, you get the reds, you get the yellows, you get the oranges, and yeah, you do get that with the peacocks of Lake Malawi, but it's just a little bit different, and I love the contrast of colors with these fish. So I've been excited about this, and what I'm going to try to do here is create a line that doesn't want to lose their color. Lake Victorian cichlids, they color up great, but in an instant they'll turn their colors off. As you can see him kind of changing colors now as I'm talking, that those bars go away, and just they have so much control over it. It's like they're a chameleon. But I'll show you the fry in the next couple clips, but I'm not going to show a close-up of this male because we're getting a good view of him now. But there's 4 females in there and 2 males. Obviously the subdominant male doesn't do much breeding, so what I'm going to do here is get him in a tank by himself, and I'm going to hold back a few of the juveniles that I've got in a 55 over here for him. That way I can get 2 breeding colonies going, so we'll see how that goes. So I'll show you the fry tanks here in a moment. Alright, what I've got down here is a huge group of Red Empress fry. They're in a 55 gallon, and these are from 1 pair. These are 3 broods, and very, very close to each other. They were about maybe 5 or 6 weeks apart, and they've just kind of stopped. They've become pretty reclusive in their tank. I've got a log in there with some fake plants in the breeding pair's tank, but they're very, very hard to video. They don't come out very often. They're pretty reclusive fish, but this is the fry from them, and they're still pretty small, less than 1 inch. I think the largest are about 1 inch. But I'll give these probably 6 or 7 more weeks, and they'll be ready to sell, trade, whatnot. Alright, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I didn't get to show you a couple tanks just because of the length of the video. I'll show you the Red Empress pair, the air system, the couple of the fry tanks for the Nagara Flametails, and I've got a holding tank now for one of the Flametails as well that I'll show you probably next time. Maybe when she releases the fry. But until then, leave your comments below. Let me know what you want to hear about. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll leave a couple links in the description just to let you know how to get a hold of me. But again, I appreciate your time, and let me know what I can do for you. Let me know how I can reach out. Let me know what information you need to continue in this hobby. Again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.